Good evening, visitors, and welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Jared Pratt, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Captain Lisa Batchelor. Today, we commemorate the 105th anniversary of the Second Battle of Villers-Bretonneux, which was fought on the 24th and 25th of April 1918 in northern France. The cost of this Allied victory was high, with the Australians suffering almost 1,500 casualties during the battle. After the war, the location of the battle was chosen as the site for the main memorial to Australians killed on the Western Front. The Australian National Memorial, which lists the names of over 10,000 Australian soldiers with no known grave who were killed on the Western Front. This evening, we warmly welcome the family of Private Gilbert Charles Toplis, who was amongst those killed at Villers-Bretonneux 105 years ago today. His story will be told shortly. This evening, we're honoured to acknowledge His Excellency General, the Honourable David Hurley, Governor-General of the Commonwealth of Australia, and Her Excellency Mrs Linda Hurley. The Honourable Kim Beazley, Chair of the Council of the Australian War Memorial, accompanied by Miss Susie Ennis. Wing Commander Sharon Bown, Dr Susan Newhouse, and Ms Rhonda Van Zeller, members of the Council of the Australian War Memorial. Mr Matt Anderson, Director of the Australian War Memorial. Mr John King, President of the Returned and Services League of Australia, ACT branch. The delegation representing the 1RAR Battalion Group Reunion, who served in Operation Solace in Somalia in 1993, and the delegation representing the Commonwealth Military Training Team Reunion, who served in Uganda from 1982 until 1984. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony from across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths or floral tributes will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem, which will be led this evening by members of the Australian Military Wives Choir and the Aussie Youth Choir. If able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through until the end of the war. The idea of this National Memorial and Museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the stories behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths of floral tributes will now be placed at the base of the pool of reflection in the following order. The family of Private Gilbert Charles Toplis. Ms Liz Harnes, supported by Mr David Werder, Ms Lee Sales, Mr Phil Breen, Mr Kevin Taylor and Mr Lee Bambach. Mr John King, President of the Returned and Services League of Australia, ACT branch. Representatives of the 1RAR Battalion Group, Operation Solace Reunion Delegation. Representatives of the Commonwealth Military Training Team, Uganda, 1982 to 1984, Reunion Delegation. The Honourable Kim Beazley, Chair of the Council of the Australian War Memorial, and Ms Susie Ennis. And the final wreaths this evening will now be laid by visitors to the memorial.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Gilbert Charles Toplis. Gilbert Toplis was born in Hobart on the 1st of November 1889. His mother Elizabeth had been serving time at the Cascades Female Factory before moving to Richmond to work as a housekeeper. In Richmond, she met and married Thomas Toplis, after which she and her son took his last name. Gilbert, known as Bertie, had a younger brother and sister. As an adult, he worked as a farmhand and ironworker while helping his mother manage the Richmond Pound. Gilbert Toplis was 24 when he enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 27th of August 1914. He was among some of the first Australians to enlist, joining the AIF weeks after the declaration of war. Toplis was assigned to the 12th Battalion and embarked from Hobart on board the troop ship Geelong on the 20th of October. Private Toplis arrived in Egypt in March 1915 and took part in the landing at Gallipoli on the 25th of April. Having survived the onslaught of the landing, Toplis spent several months serving on the peninsula. On the 6th of August, he took part in an attack aimed to divert Turkish reserves from Hill 971. This attack later became known as the Battle of Lone Pine. The attack resulted in more than 2,000 Australian casualties. During the attack, the men were confronted by logs which had been placed over the Turkish trenches, preventing them from attacking the enemy. The Turks opposed the offensive by throwing hand grenades at the advancing troops. During the onslaught, Private Toplis was wounded in the head by an enemy grenade. He was evacuated from the peninsula and sent to England to convalesce, rejoining his unit in Egypt in January of 1916 during the Allied retreat from Gallipoli. Toplis was transferred to the 52nd Battalion. Embarking for France on the 5th of June 1916, Toplis's first major action on the Western Front took place at Mouquet Farm in September of 1916. The 52nd Battalion had missed previous fighting in the area, having been assigned support roles. In the new offensive, they played a key role in extending Allied control of Pozières Ridge, but sustained casualties amounting to 50% of their fighting strength in the process. Following the disaster at Mouquet Farm, Toplis's battalion spent the next several months alternating between training, labouring and frontline duty until their next battle at Norroy in April of 1917. After pushing the enemy back at the Hindenburg Line, operational focus shifted to the front lines in Belgium around the Ypres salient. Toplis then saw action throughout 1917 at the Battle of Messines in June and at Polygon Wood in September, as the Allies attempted to capture the high ground along the Passchendaele Ridge. In January of 1918, Toplis was granted leave in England before returning to France in time to fight against German forces at Dernancourt in April. Just days later, the 52nd Battalion was tasked with taking back the French town of Villers-Bretonneux, which the Germans had captured from the British some weeks earlier. On the 24th of April 1918, the Germans launched an attack on Australian positions using gas, tanks and armoured vehicles. The 13th and 14th Brigades were tasked with encircling and clearing the village. Toplis faced heavy machine gun fire as his brigade made their way towards its objectives. Despite fierce opposition, the Australians managed to secure the town by the end of the following day. Though successful, the recapture of Villers-Bretonneux cost the 13th and 15th Brigades more than 1,400 casualties. Among the dead was Private Gilbert Toplis. His comrades informed his mother back in Richmond that Toplis had been sniped through the head during the advance on the township on the 24th of April. The battalion's chaplain wrote to Elizabeth Toplis to console her. He was a fine fellow, always so ready to help. He truly gave his life, and you must be proud of him. All his mates thought a great deal of him. We were able to give him a decent burial on the battlefield, and a memorial is being erected near the place. The deceased was highly respected by all who knew him. His honest, manly, straightforward ways won him many friends, and he will be sadly missed by them. Gilbert Topless was 28 years old. His burial place was lost during the ongoing fighting. However, it is believed his remains may be among those with no known grave in the Adelaide Cemetery. Today, he is commemorated on the Australian Memorial at Villers-Bretonneux, among more than 10,000 Australians with no known grave. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Gilbert Charles Topless, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of the better world.
Legacy began in the trenches of the First World War, when a soldier promised his dying mate that he would look after the missus and kids. This became known as the promise. Since 1923, Legacy has kept this promise by ensuring families are provided advocacy, education, financial and emotional support. I now invite the Legacy Youth Delegation, who are with us this evening, to bring forward the ceremonial lanterns, which will be placed into the Hall of Memory shortly. These lanterns will remain overnight and will be included in tomorrow's dawn service. If able, please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorial's development project. Thank you.